Hello, 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 my beautiful empresses. Welcome back to Embody Your Empress. I'm Sarah King, the host of this podcast and the founder of Empress Nation. This is the place you want to be if you want to go deeper into understanding who you are on all levels of life. If you want to open up to some new perspectives and challenge the way that you think and the way that you live. And if you want to embrace the community out there, the sisterhood, the collective, the people in the world making a difference, the people being that ripple, because guess what? Hey, you are as well. Today, I would love to introduce another wonderful guest. And we've had a few, so go back and make sure that you listen to some episodes, subscribe, and like everything. Today's guest, I really resonate with. She is someone who has worked in a leadership role. She's been the head of a HR department. She has come from the world of being everything to everyone, doing everything for everyone, and getting to that point of wondering what else is there. With a beautiful shift in the world and an awakening to see that there is so much more out there and to help people along with their journeys, I would love to introduce Libby Rapin. Welcome to Embody Your Empress.
Thank you, Sarah. I so appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. Olivia, I love to know more about who you are as a human, who you are as a soul, and how you came to be on this journey. Big question, I know.
I love that. And I love that just because you're like reading my mind, because usually when people ask this question, I'm like, that's such a big question. Where do I start? On a soul level, I'm a human just like you, having a soul just like you, having a human experience, navigating all sorts of different existential crises, if you will, that have awakened me and gotten me here, which is one of your questions. And who I am, how I describe myself in this human form, is a conscious living and leadership coach for high caliber, high performing women who have done it all. They're holding it all together and they're looking to live differently. They're looking to live with more sacredness and reverence. And part of what I do is help them to be their own medicine. And going back to your third part of the question of how did I get here, it really was my own experience of climbing a corporate ladder, buying into we call it the hustle and the grind, the work hard, play hard mentality. I was working in the tech startup world and really burned out and was experiencing physical symptoms and labeled with different types of autoimmune disorders. And that led me on this journey of understanding the mind body connection and change, like focusing on my physical health by way of also focusing on my energy hygiene and my mental health. And that just kind of like sent me off to the races of all of these massive transformations in my life, which really led me to where I am today on being on a mission to help eliminate suffering. Like that's what I'm trying to do in the most simplest forms in the work that I do, is to eliminate this, I call it unnecessary suffering that we create in our world today. So
Oh my gosh. When you say it like that, it sounds so simple. Why do we choose suffering? Why do we choose to be living in this world with suffering?
it's a really beautiful question, and I ask myself that, like, why did I make the choices that I did to hang on to resentments, to choose to show up with anger and frustration, when I could have chose joy and love. And that's, listen, it's just not going to be as simple as I try to make it out to be, where it's all roses and sunshine and all the other really great things. Part of the human experience is experiencing the complexity of human emotion and experience, and being able to navigate that for the highest benefit of our souls and of consciousness on a much grander perspective. So I don't know if there's just one answer to why do we choose suffering. We could probably do like a whole episode in and of itself on that.
Multiple, probably.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Okay, Livy, let's take it back to that beginning of your journey. You said your autoimmune disorders came
Uh-huh.
up for you when you were living in that corporate world, doing the
Yeah.
hustle and the grind and all the things. That
Yeah.
is really common for women,
Totally.
really common because we pile everything on our plates. When
Yeah.
you started to have that shift in the consciousness coming through loud and clear, what were some of the first steps that you took to help support yourself?
Well, the first step was so back then I did yoga. I did core power yoga, which is like the workout style yoga. There was nothing spiritual about it. Okay. So like I've come a really long way. But the reality is that like as I was studying more and more about the mind body connection, I got really curious about understanding energy. So I started going to a craniosacral therapist. That led me into doing different types of Japanese body work. It led me into like other yoga communities where like yoga was the meditation. Like I didn't even know what that meant. I didn't even know what meditation really was. I thought it meant that I had to have zero thoughts and just sit there in complete silence. Well, I was wrong on that as far as a practice and what it conceptually is. And so it began with all of these little, like, I call them like little, like, angel God winks, where it was like, go here, go into this studio, go work with this person. But it was all about the mind body connection and focusing on our mental, emotional, and spiritual health. So it started with, once I got into like the yoga community, well, I'm just going to try meditating on the Headspace app on my phone for 5 minutes a day. And so I would be consistent for a couple of days and then let it go for another week and then pick it up again. And it was these micro moments of becoming aware even of my thoughts of like, oh, there I go again. I'm spiraling into a scarcity mindset and becoming aware of what that even meant and choosing to like reframe my thoughts and choose something different. It was as simple as practicing gratitude. I had a little gratitude jar in my apartment at that time. And every day I would put something that I was grateful for in the jar and eventually like filled that up. And so it was just becoming much more aware and intentional around how I was showing up in the world, how I was responding to experiences, starting to be more conscious of the thoughts that I was having and shifting them when they didn't feel good, was choosing to forgive somebody that I had perceived as hurting me instead of like hanging on to it. So there was a multitude of different things. I didn't do this all at once, but those were some of the little nuggets of when I go back to remembering the beginning of my journey. It was like the culmination of maybe one or a couple of those every day that eventually I started to see the impact of that in my life over time.
So beautiful and so relatable. When I first was like, oh, there's something else more to life, I was like, this meditation thing, huh? Everyone seems to be on board with that. And I was so
Yeah.
gripping onto the control with my brain, like white knuckling it, that I was just like, I can't go to a meditation group. What if I'm doing it wrong? So I would go
Totally.
to YouTube and I would practice doing meditation to get up the courage to be able to go to a meditation group because I still wanted to
Same.
control it.
Yeah, same. Like I had a lot of perfectionist qualities where I was getting caught and always asking, am I doing right? Is this the type of experience I'm supposed to be having? And wanted to be super intentional with that. Yeah, so I can totally, totally relate to you.
Am I doing it right? I think that's a question that we ask as women, particularly so often in our day,
Mm.
like even throughout the day. Am I doing this right? Am I doing the right thing for everyone else? Am I doing the right thing for this? Who cares about being right? Yeah, I think we get to a point where we're just like, oh, well, F it.
Yeah.
If it's not right, but it's still for me because I'm doing it, we can just have
Yeah.
fun and play with it.
Yeah. Well, and you had such a beautiful reminder of like life is meant to be fun and we make it so serious throughout our lives. And I think that comes from conditioning, as children. I don't know like how the experience was for you, but I went to Catholic school and it was a private school. And so there were a lot of rules. And so I think the question of, is this being done the right way? It comes from a space of fear and remembrance of all of the times when I was told I had to, as simple as like stand in a straight line and not, stand a little bit out of line when we're walking down the hallway or have your shirt tucked in completely. You couldn't have a you know, little corner of your shirt out. And we would get like check marks when we weren't following the rules of the classroom. And so there is this conditioning within me from all sorts of different spaces of, am I doing it right? I mean, I was an athlete growing up. I guess there's still some of that in me. Not like I've completely lost that, but I was really into sports. And so even when you think about techniques of when we're playing sports as children, kick it this way, throw it this way, pass this way, and there's this constant feedback that we're receiving on it'll be better if it's done this way. And so it's like, how could we not be in our heads and question that with all of the ways in which that type of judgment, am I doing it right, comes in?
That is so true. When you put it like that, the
Mm-hmm.
reflection on all those little micros adding up to compacting to how we are living and judging ourselves. And no wonder we're so self-critical of
Yeah.
everything that we do. It has been there following us. It's a beautiful thing when we have that awakening, our eyes open, and we get to question these programs running in the background, these voices that are critical in our minds, and we get to make that choice about who we are going forward and who we get to be.
Mm. Yeah.
And one of your concepts is, you know, leading with love, like feeling into life with love. Can you share why love is such a structural foundation in what you do?
Yeah. I really feel like this whole journey that I've been on has been around learning to love myself unconditionally, knowing that now the more I can shower love within myself, the more I sprinkle that and spread that into the world. Because when our foundation is so strong and we cultivate this like sense of like an inner sanctuary, everything around us is so steady that even amidst chaos, we choose to align to love and spread compassion, and we choose to forgive. Like these are all of the things when I said that part of what I teach is to be your own medicine. All of those ways of being aligned to love. And love for me, before I started to understand this more widely, if you will, was that like I just love a person and I can only love like my partner or my family. Those are the only people I say I love you to. And that was such a small, minuscule, like tapping into in the essence of love. And so part of this journey is I've been asking, like, what is love? I have little sticky notes around my house, and I have one here in front of my desk that says, what would love do? As my reminder to always come back to in the moments, especially when I experience an emotional rise, when I'm watching the news and notice myself fading into anger and aggression. In that moment, maybe I look at that and it's like, oh yeah, like what would love do? It feels way better in your body when you connect to that and you think about love. And so now, I think part of my mission is helping people see that love is not this like small little container that is only shared um, with somebody that you might be married to or in relationship with. Like I tell people that I've like maybe only known for a couple of days and we have an intimate conversation like I love you. Thank you. Like thank you so much for sharing the depths of who you are and letting me see you. And that's there's like an energy of love that is exchanged in different types of interactions like that. So I hope that answers your question, but for me it's like being in the corporate world and really feeling like um, maybe it feels like boundaries around bringing love into the workplace feels like unacceptable. And so part of what I want to teach is that like no, you can love the people that you work with. I had a CEO that I worked closely with in one of my corporate jobs where she would sign off our all company meeting and say I love you guys. And I just remember the first time I heard that, it was the most beautiful experience I ever had. And so she, like her modeling that has helped me expand the way that I look at love, even.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I love that without sounding too cheesy. Like that is fantastic. So often in a corporate world, in a professional business setting, even I feel like in the entrepreneurial world now it's coming through where it's
Yeah.
like leave it leave you at the door. still continue to come in and put on the grey suit and just be this mechanical robot. And I thought we were making a shift away from that. And then I
Yeah.
feel like it's like slowly like pulling it back to hang on a minute. Everyone's getting a bit too unique. Everyone's feeling into their power a bit too much. And I feel like the powers that be have sort of been like, oh, no, 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 hang on, let's try and squash this. I am all for sharing who we are in the workplace because when we understand each other, we have more compassion for each other. We are more
Yeah.
productive on a whole for whatever we are doing. We're more lit
Yeah.
up, we're more passionate. And when you're having a bad day, like quote unquote, when you're emotional, when something's going on in your life, like big stuff can happen. And if we don't share it with those people that we're spending 8, 10, 12 hours with, they're going to be like, what's wrong with this person? They're going to have all these other stories going on in their head.
Yeah.
I'm all for sharing the parts that are not always pretty with the people
Yeah.
working with because then they can understand, they can empathize with me, they can support me as well, and I can be there for them, and we can work as an actual team rather than team just being a label that's thrown together for the HR, days
Yeah.
where like let's do some team building. Really, like
Yeah.
what does playing a game of bowls do to connect with people when we could sit down and we could actually just have an eye contact moment and have a chat and express ourselves. And I used to love really getting to know the people I worked with, so much so that when someone goes, do you trust them? I go, absolutely. I know everything about their lives. I
Yeah.
know that what they do is integral because I know everything about their lives and they are making decisions
Yeah.
from that. And that's
Yeah.
how I would go throughout my day. And that
Yeah.
this makes such a difference when you can sit down and go, yeah, I've looked this person in the eye and I've looked into their soul and I trust everything about them.
Yeah. And you bring up such a beautiful point, and the word intimacy was like going off in my head as I was hearing you speak about, as humans, we deeply desire to be seen and known. And what that requires is an opening of our heart to establish that intimacy so that we can work through conflict and collaborate better. We can, feed off of each other's creative inspirations. We can problem solve in more unique, maybe efficient ways when we can more quickly move through, especially conflict. I just think about how many times being in HR, I was brought into conversations where there were just misunderstandings. A manager gives somebody feedback and the person is like, my manager has never told me this, and then it like escalates, and then I'm brought in to like mediate a conversation, and all it came down to was both people kind of like having walls around their heart and not allowing themselves to express what they truly want to express. And so it festers, and we spend so much energy on trying to resolve while still hiding, and that doesn't really work. And I understand wanting to have like a maybe a privacy between home life and work life, but at some point, part of this journey is stepping into what feels really scary. And for a lot of people, that it is truly being seen and being known. And that's, it's like we hide behind that even though we deeply want that. And I do believe that we can do a better job in the workplace of cultivating experiences to support people and being able to do that. And my silly example of this is, I used to lead so many trainings on how to give feedback during like performance review season. And the reality is that you can have somebody attend that training 10 times and they still feel really scared to lean into giving like especially the tough feedback. Why is that? It's not because they don't know your framework for giving feedback. They know that. It's because at some point, somewhere within, maybe when they were in expression, somebody invalidated them or told them they were wrong, or they get scared of a strong emotional reaction from somebody because of something that happened in childhood. So if we can help people like work through those types of things in conjunction with this is our framework for giving feedback in this example, like we can completely transform work environments. And I truly, truly believe that.
Because we can be soft in a work environment and still have our professionalism, still have our motivation, still have that edge driving us, right?
Yeah, it's both and. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
It's so beautiful to be able to have these conversations, especially when motherhood hit me. I felt like I had completely shifted on an axis and I felt like I didn't fit into that world anymore. I felt like it was so masculine driven and so structured
Mm,
towards supporting men that me internally, my whole DNA had changed, and I'm like, I don't belong here anymore.
yeah.
What would be one tip you could give a woman who is in that shift, in that way frame of thinking, to let her know that it's okay that her feminine and her masculine can coexist in a working environment?
Well, we have to have both. Like, there's no way that like, we all have both, and we're talking about energies here right now with the feminine and the masculine energies. We have to have both. And I think we have to give ourselves permission to operate in both and to embody both. And for me, the answer for that was taking time to pause and go within and to truly be able to slow down and pause. And I don't have kids, but I'm surrounded by friends and siblings that have kids. So I see what they're navigating through. And so there's constructs and mindsets around if if I'm a mom, I don't have time for myself because it's selfish for me to slow down and give myself this time versus doing something for my kids. That is very common and it shows up in the coaching container quite often. But I would reframe that and think about that. I think you said that you worked in the airline industry, that the whole put your own oxygen mask on first metaphor of like, you have got to fill your cup, you have got to put your oxygen mask on first before you can be fit for service and serve others, and that includes your family and it includes colleagues, you know, all the things. And so we have got to remember that and know that it's okay. And it's not selfish to do that. And that's going within and looking also at like, why do I believe this to be true? Is this unequivocally true? Like, what evidence do I have to support that this is actually factual? And going down the rabbit hole of your own mind and deconstructing where the stories and the programs came from, that comes when you go within. But if you're never pausing, it's like that opportunity, I don't want to say never arises, but your ability to access the comfortability and operating in harmony with the masculine and feminine, I would say, is harder to access.
Mm, mm. I know that you work a lot talking about taking a pause and tuning in. You use rituals and ceremony
Yeah.
to oh, what can you speak into that a bit more and share with us, what does it mean to be doing a ritual? How does that support you?
Hmm. Yeah, totally. So for me, daily rituals looks in a lot of different ways. Before I kind of talk about how that might look, the reason for me this became so important in my life is that if I just said, I'm going to meditate, I'm going to practice breath work, it felt like something I had to do, like something I was trying to check off my to-do list. And so that felt really masculine. And here I am as a woman who was like totally imbalanced and embodying her feminine and even being proud to embody that. It was like, okay, this isn't working to just call it cultivating new habits and I'm just going to do these things. And so I started playing with conscious language, and it was like, what words resonate? And it was like ceremony and ritual. And like that felt so soft and inviting in my body as I was trying to be much more intentional and sacred with how I approached life. So rituals show up in many different ways. It could be before you look at your phone in the morning, you're spending 5 to 10 minutes in meditation or in breath work. Maybe you're setting intention for your day, but it's setting yourself up energetically before you actually go into the busyness of your day. The same time, a ritual to end your day might be I always love to imagine shaking off all of the energy that I've taken on from the day. And then I always bring my hand to my heart. And I do this while I'm just like, honestly, sometimes laying in bed or I'm just getting into bed. And then I'll say, what am I grateful for? And then another thing I might say is like, what do I need to let go of from today? And then I just like fall into bed. And half the time I'm falling asleep to the things I'm saying, what I'm saying I'm grateful for. So I probably get through maybe two things because I fall asleep really fast. Another ritual might be, in the middle of your workday, you guys are in summer, we're coming into our springtime here, like taking a 10-minute walk during the day, but like not multitasking while you're doing this, right? So like not taking your phone with you and checking emails or checking text messages, Slack, just actually going on a walk and being present with the sounds and the sights. For me, that is a ritual because it drops me into my body and into presence. So I just think of rituals as a more sacred way to approach sometimes the mundane things in life. Like I try to make a ritual out of like brushing my teeth, where I just like brush my teeth, but I do it really slow and I close my eyes and I imagine my toothbrush hitting every tooth because otherwise I'm walking around my house doing other things while I'm brushing my teeth. And so for me, when I'm like, no, my ritual today, because I didn't get to do it this morning, is right now in this moment. And these are my 2 minutes to bring a lot of sacredness into my present moment reality. And so those are just a couple of things that I love to turn through. There's so many, but those are some ones that I feel like could be easy to add into your day with little instruction.
Absolutely. And just being mindful of being in the moment. Like I have had as just the other day, actually, I was on my way to meet a client and I had stopped at a park to run in and use the public toilet. So I had
Okay.
parked the car, I'd run across the little walk bridge, I'd gone to the toilet, I'd come back. Something made me just stop and turn around, and I had completely walked past a tree that had a koala bear in it. And
Oh my
for
word.
yeah, and it was low down. It was so close. It was just having a little nap. It was stretching around, and I had completely bypassed it, walked through because I'm like,
Yeah.
head down, must get to what I'm doing in a rush, rush, rush,
Yeah.
rush, rather than actually lifting my eyes, taking time to connect with the nature, just in that little moment that was there, and really
Yes.
being present in that moment. And I'm so grateful that little voice
Yes.
was just like, hey, just turn around for a second, see what you're missing. And I just
Yeah.
stopped and I stood there for 10 minutes looking at this beautiful creature. Because even though in Australia, a lot of places, they are becoming rarer to find. And especially with the suburban like outreach, especially, they are becoming more sacred. Like the poor little creatures, we
Yes.
don't see them every day. Like I might see one,
Yeah.
oh gosh, maybe I've seen about eight in 20 years since living here that have just
Yeah.
been in the real world
That's
rather than.
amazing.
So I was just like, and I was like, I could have beat myself up over not being so present. And then I chose to
Yeah.
reframe, like, well, this is my lesson to
Yeah.
be more in the moment, to stop the rush, to stop,
Yeah.
just trying to shoot through everything and actually
Yeah.
look around and see what's there.
Yeah, because those little moments are the moments that make life feel so magical and special, right? And those are the moments I used to zoom by too. Even yesterday on my walk, I was looking down because we still have ice here, and this kid up in front of me starts pointing in the air to his parents, and there were four bald eagles up there. And like it's not uncommon to see bald eagles, but you don't hardly ever see two at a time where you would see four. And so it felt really special. But those are the moments where it's like they can take your breath away, where you're just in awe. And those, when I think about what has ritual brought into my life and really embodying this as my way of being and not just something that I do, my life has completely shifted in ways that I can probably not just capture in two sentences here for you, but I have stopped, it's like reacting to life. And I
Mm.
now just entrust that everything is happening for me. There's a purpose in it. And I'm just going to trust that there's like a greater lesson, if you will. I started to see the beauty in the little moments for sure. The anxious and racing thoughts slowed. I started sleeping through the night. And this was all like, I didn't even know these things were happening in the moment. Like, it feels like sometimes we just have those days where you're like, oh wow, I haven't done that thing in a while, or I haven't woken up in the middle of the night stressed about my to-do list in a while. And you start to see the impact, right? I was like way less impulsive. Um, and I really just started, I think the biggest thing now is like as a woman, I started connecting to my intuition and choosing a life direction, and making decisions in alignment with my values that felt good for me, and not just doing it to make other people happy. But it was like a muscle I had to cultivate and nurture over time to get to this point. I mean, it's like you don't go to the gym once and all of a sudden you have a six pack, right? It's like we have to exercise and build this muscle. I wish it
That'd
could
be
happen
great.
once. Right? Wouldn't that be amazing?
Love that. That'd be fantastic. Although there are some healing tools and modalities available where you can have a huge shift in a very short time. Like I took my partner to breath work, transformational
Mm,
breath work, and
yeah.
prior to that, um, every night he would yell in his sleep and swear in his sleep, like trauma response coming through, um,
Yeah.
in that regard. And then after doing the breath work, a few weeks later, I'm like, hey, have you noticed like you don't swear or yell out in your sleep anymore? He still mutters away, chats away. I'm like, but it's
Wow.
that trauma forced like expression trying to like come out, trying to be healed. And he's just like, really? I'm like, yeah. And then like a few, because we do distance, so we're not together every
Yeah.
night. A few weeks later, I'm
Yeah.
like, it's still the case. Like, he's just
Yeah.
like, really? And I'm like, think you closed some trauma loops there. I'm like, well done, you. Because he was like, he was new to
Yeah.
it. He had not tried it before, maybe a little bit resistant as to what this would be about. And just being open to the possibility of discovering a new thing, trying out, going down that path of will this lead me to discover more of who I am? And I feel like, especially with breathwork, people are a little bit resistant to that because it can look so different for everyone. And
Oh
it's
yeah.
and like any modality, I'm like, if you are just open, you will have the experience that is meant for you.
Yeah.
It's when we try and control it, put the limitations on, and like still get very human in our head about it. Is when often we can go down different rabbit holes. But yeah,
Absolutely. So he obviously on a soul level, it was like he was ready to release that. And
hmm
breathwork was just, the invitation for that experience to unfold. And it sounds like a pretty graceful unfolding for him and a release and a letting
yeah,
go.
it
Wasn't
was.
like yeah, it wasn't
It,
forced.
no, well, it was not forced at all. He was just open to whatever was going to happen, even throughout the session. It was like very peaceful. It wasn't one of those chaotic, angry ones that we see like on Instagram clips that get all the clickbait going on.
Yeah.
And yeah, it had such a roll on effect. Um, that was a beautiful example of, especially when someone is new to this world of embracing that deeper dive, that
Yeah.
it doesn't need to be hard work. It doesn't need to
Yeah.
be coming out of the mind and having to be relived. When our soul is calling it forward, we can hand it over.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think sometimes, like, I know for me, I try to control outcomes a lot. And so I'll never forget, started taking horseback riding lessons after I had come back from doing equine therapy in Sedona, and it had really inspired me. And so I started, I'd never ridden on a horse, didn't grow up with horses. And this was when I was, I don't know, maybe like 10 years ago, like maybe not that long, around that, let's just say. And I'll never forget the amount of times the trainer would be like, loosen your reins. And I would be holding the horse so tightly that the horse was turning weird ways or just stopping. And I'm like, go, And that was totally a metaphor for at that point how I was approaching life. And so the horses, I learned how they were a mirror for me in so many moments of like needing to just like loosen the reins. It's like I can hold them, but I can hold them so that there is they're relaxed, and it creates this spaciousness for something magical and maybe unexpected to unfold because of that. And so that was a huge, huge lesson for me as I was navigating this journey of all the ways that I was trying to control and squeeze, and just the ways in which I was wound so tightly to specific outcomes. And it just like energetically like created so many hurtful thought
Mm.
forms, and I would be so depleted from them. And so then I realized, wow, like thoughts have energy. I'm exhausted from most of my days, not because I'm running a marathon, because I have so many thoughts that are unnurturing.
Mm. And then we can choose to run away with them, or we can loosen that grip and let them drift off.
Yeah.
I love that the rains metaphor just brings me back to actually something you said right at the beginning of hearing the God whisper, hearing the angel whisper,
Mm.
hearing the universe come in, and trusting that when you hear that whisper, just go where it leads you. And if we're holding on too tightly, if we're holding on to control too tightly, that's where we don't hear it. A lot of people that I work with, they go, I don't have intuition coming through. And I'm like, you do. We just gotta get the walls down so that you can actually hear it coming through. And we've got to find the
Yes.
way that you can know that you're connecting with it, because it's that trust factor, because it's always coming through all throughout your day. And when you
Yeah.
actually build that relationship, the two-way relationship, the communication, the trust, to allow it to sink in and go, I'm safe to follow what I'm hearing or feeling or
Yes.
seeing, because it shows
Yeah.
up in everyone a little bit differently or all at once. And
Yeah.
that those little steps create that life that you keep dreaming about, that you keep desiring, that keeps pulling you. It's us that put up the walls and go, oh no, no, I've got to keep the control over here. And we
Yeah.
don't always see how it's going to unfold. We don't know how those nudges are going to look. And when we just lean into being okay with that,
Yeah.
life just opens up.
Yeah. That's a huge like journey to go on, to like peel back the layers of the onion and the constructs, to just allow ourselves to be okay with the unseen, with that level of uncertainty. But there's so much beauty. It sounds like you've had the most beautiful experiences when you have truly like allowed yourself to be intuitively guided and surrendered to like that wisdom that you're receiving and is coming through. But you also have to slow down, to your point, in
Mm.
order to notice that, which is why I think that for anyone that is beginning this journey, on this journey, it's like the journey begins with awareness and stillness and pausing. Whatever, if that's 1 minute at a time, if it's 5 minutes at a time, it's 30 minutes at a time, it's better than none. I always tell my clients, like, start with 1 minute 3 times a day: morning, middle of your day, and at night. That's 3 minutes a day of intentional conscious awareness that you were not getting before. And when you feel ready, you build up. And that's exactly what like my journey started with therapy before starting to work with coaches and all sorts of other modalities later on. And that was what she said. I'm just asking you for 1 minute. If you're telling me you don't have 1 minute out of your day, we have a much bigger problem on our hands.
Yeah.
So
And you can find that 1 minute anywhere. You could be just before you jump
totally.
out of your car, you can set 1 minute aside before you jump out
Yeah.
of bed in the morning. I like
Yeah.
to, in the shower in the evening, I like to use that really intentionally to disconnect from my day, to wash everything away. And then
Yes.
I've learned to slow down that process even more by not rushing to like get redressed, but to have the robe on and to take that moment of peace for me. And
Yes.
that was one of the most beautiful things that I brought in over my summer, was to extend those moments of beauty for me, and to
Yeah.
take that time.
Yeah. I mean, I think that like what we're talking about then it sounds like is being able to cultivate that presence in everyday moments. It does what I teach both
Mm.
end. Yes, there is a ritual that maybe you do separate from practicing in the way that we're talking about, which was is bringing intentional presence and awareness into things we're already doing, like when we're in the shower, being able to like connect to the droplets of water touching our body, or being really present as we're shampooing our hair and washing our body, or when I'm walking out to get the mail, connecting to the sounds of nature, or cleaning up my kids' toys and practicing gratitude, or savoring the moment you saw them playing with their favorite toy that day, or when you're washing the dishes, like you're very aware and present in that moment. Like I think that's such a beautiful entry point of like getting into this work, is that like we think a lot of times the block is that I don't have time for this. And that's just a story that we tell ourselves. And I know that from my experience where I didn't think I had time to live a more joy filled life, which is so crazy to think about now. But that is a reality that I lived in. So I know I'm not the only person that has experienced that. But like, how do we, as we're beginning to shift this way of being, is to uh, be able to sprinkle awareness into things that we're already doing right now in the moment that we have to get done today. And that's the simplest form. And then from there, it's like you get a flavor of it and it becomes something that you can't live without. I mean, I had a coaching client once who told me when we started the journey of going within and we were doing different mindfulness practices, her husband literally laughed at her and said, "You'll never be able to do this." And she literally, that was her motivation. Within a very short time, she became the woman who didn't want to constantly be cleaning. She didn't want to always have music on or a podcast. She loved sitting in silence. She loved going on walks with her dog without having the music playing. And that is possible when we believe it ourselves and begin to practice, because it takes reps to get to that point. But she started to experience how good it felt, and then she wanted more of it. So that was my journey too, when it was like, oh, I feel so much better not like constantly thinking about work, sleeping through the night, being able to show up with more joy and like a lightness with my personality. How have I been missing out on a life that feels like this for so long? And why didn't I start this sooner? Were the things that I kept saying to myself.
And isn't that curious that the person closest to her was the one saying, "You can't do that"?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely putting her in a box, keeping her small, and almost the control of, no, that's not going to be for
Yeah.
you. I love that she still went there and she did it in spite of that.
Yeah.
Um, did
Yeah.
he get on board with it? Like, I'm curious to know. Like, did he come along on the journey?
Like embody it with, I actually don't know. I don't know
Mm.
that for sure. But I would imagine that it sets an example for her. She had three kids, for her kids and him, in a way that maybe has not sprouted yet. Maybe it has. That was a few years ago. But yeah, my hope is that, like, and that's this work. I stopped trying to, I think when I started this, I tried to convince people that this was the right way and you had to buy into this, and that was my passion coming alive. But then it got to the point where it's like, you know what, no, I'm just going to be the walking example of the impact of this work in my life, and hope that through my example of how I move and how I think and how I behave, that is medicine for other people and they feel inspired by that. My job here is not to force anyone or convince anyone. That's totally the wrong energy. It's to inspire somebody to want to go on the journey, because without that, it's not sustainable. And there's no destination. Like this journey, as I know it today, will continue for our entire lives. So you better be vested. And once you start the journey, you cannot go back. So that's what I'll just say, is that like but it gets better and better and easier in my experience. And it's like, you know, some days is easier than others. This is not it's not perfect every day, but I will tell you it has gotten way easier with time, and way easier by way of becoming aware more quickly of when I go into an unproductive, unhealthy, unnurturing thought pattern, when I'm clinging to resentment instead of forgiving. I notice those things faster. I notice throughout my day when I start to feel anxious that I need to say no to commitments and instead do my energy hygiene practices to fill me back up. And so I notice how the behaviors and the thoughts, it's like I notice them faster and when I need to get back on track and realign.
Yes, definitely. I love after my first start in other soul, I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm good now. And my friend who was helping me guide me through this awakening was just like, by the way, Sarah, there's going to be more. You never know. You're just going to get a bit more used to them. They're going to
Yeah.
be random. You don't know. And I'm like, what have I signed up for? Not that I signed
I
up for
know.
it. It was like, this is your time. And like you say, like
Yeah.
when it begins, like there's no turning back. And I knew that as I stepped forward, I'm like, the can of worms is open. I have to follow this path. I had like
Yeah.
resisted it for so many years already. It was just like, it is time.
Yeah.
And I think just having the awareness of it is the evolution continuing throughout life. And now I get to laugh at the bits that I would have previously once got frustrated with and be like, what are you doing?
Yes, we have to laugh at ourselves. Like
We
sometimes when I
have
catch myself, I'm like, why are you thinking that? And why are you telling yourself that story? Like, okay. And I will literally laugh at myself to make it more playful and fun and to know also it's just a thought. This is not, it just comes and it goes. But sometimes the things we tell ourselves are just so wild.
so wild. All right, Libby, I have some Empress questions for you. I would
Okay.
love to know, how do you embody your Empress?
How do I embody my Empress?
Yeah.
That's a beautiful question. I don't know if I've ever thought about that. I think embodying my Empress for me, when I think about the way that she walks and she moves, is that she is moving in alignment with her intuition and she stands for her, like, it's like she stands with a conviction that's in alignment with her values. So I would say that feels really true for me right now. And I'm getting a lot of uh, upgrades in that department. So I'm just gonna move through with that. That's how I embody her today.
I love that for you. That's fantastic. What exciting.
I love
Beautiful.
that question.
Yeah. It catches everyone, like not to catch out, but it makes us all,
Yeah,
everyone, every single person I've asked has to reflect. And I'm
yeah,
like, that is so cool because,
yeah,
obviously I believe the Empress energy is within us all. And the more that we get to
yeah,
bring that out to play, to live, the more
yeah,
we move through life like that.
yeah.
So, which leads me to my next question is, what does
Okay.
your Empress energy feel like within your body?
Ooh, she feels expansive and free and confident and unapologetic in who she is. Like she can conquer the world. Like she's an unstoppable force.
She is. She
Yeah. And
is.
grounded. Like I'm noticing even I just moved my legs. I have like this strong stance right now. Like she's
Mm.
clearly anchored in and like deeply connected in when with in this type of a stature to like Mother Earth, like a mission beyond just her human experience.
Oh, beautiful. It almost looked like the crown was
I
pulling
can
it
feel
into
it right now. Like I'm just like, whew. Yeah.
amazing. If anyone's listening to this, go and watch it on YouTube because, yeah, just like your whole body completely shifted. The energy just
Mm,
like woof, straight
yeah.
up. It was so beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, and what are your parting words of wisdom for inspiring your nation?
The message that is coming through right now and that I'm hearing is just remembering that all of the answers are always within you, always inside of you. We like to seek and go to gurus and talk to mediums, and that's beautiful. And also, like, remember that, like, you can access all of the information that you need within you. And that goes to why your work is so important and why the things that I'm doing are so important as well. But yes, it's all available to us.
It is. It really, really is. And the more that we lean in, the easier it is to feel that, and the more trust we have in
Yeah.
ourselves. and
Yeah.
we get to rewrite those programs we learned at school that told us that we weren't doing it the right way, because we are doing it the right way every
Yeah.
single time if we follow what's coming from within. That's so
Yeah.
beautiful, Libby.
Yeah.
What's the best way for people to reach out to you, to connect, to work with you?
Yeah, thank you for that. My website is libbyrapin.com. Email is libby@libbyrapin.com. Hopefully, pretty memorable there. Nothing crazy. I'm really active on Instagram and LinkedIn, both under my name, Libby Rapin. So, those would be the absolute best ways to connect with me.
Perfect. And we'll pop all the links in the show description as well. So you can just go on and
Thank
have a
you.
clickety click and reach out to Libby. And being around people like yourself, Libby, being in your energy lifts people up. And this creates
Mhm.
the ripple in the world. And I love
Yeah.
what you do. And I love the energy you bring. And thank
Mm.
you for sharing your heart, your soul, your human here with us today.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. This was so beautiful and I really, really appreciate it. So, thank
You
you.
too, honey. Thank you.